Hey guys, wanted to just kind of drop something here concerning covering theology and submission to authority. I know that's, some churches really emphasize that, some don't really talk about it much at all. We all know that there's a blessing that comes with honoring our mother and father. We all know there's a blessing that comes from honoring authority, within reason and within, a tension of the priesthood of the believer, as well as just a general honor for authority. We know there's blessing there, and there's protection in being around and submitted to other more seasoned believers, or if it's in business, like someone who's mentoring you. So that's obvious that there is a blessing in that, and there is a safety in that. But when it's overemphasized, this overemphasizing of submission to authority, threats of danger, of cursing, if you aren't submitted enough to it. Of course, the gossip and slander thing is very attached to it, because anything that's coming against the covering or against the house, that's going to be gossip and slander, when it may just be kind of an opinion or, a real complaint of something very negative that's happening. So a lot of times in organizations, the gossip and slander in the midst of the covering theology is used to not cover, but to control, and to control information, and to make sure that nothing negative is spread, which could actually be a truth that is being spread. And so there's a lot of that kind of controlling behavior, controlling culture. But this isn't a new thing. Actually, in the 80s and the 90s, there was a movement called the shepherding movement. If you haven't heard about this movement, you should go and look them up. It was led by a bunch of really high-level charismatic leaders. You'll recognize some of their names if you look up the shepherding movement. But the shepherding movement was largely deemed a cult by most of the evangelical church and the church as a whole in the United States. I have a friend and a mentor who's actually a pastor in that movement at one point, and then had his eyes opened and came out before it really collapsed. But the problem is that there's still residue of that same movement that's spread out throughout a lot of the Spirit-filled movement. And what you can see, the signs of it, is this emphasis on covering theology, meaning I have to submit to this person, whoever God's assigned me to in this spiritual environment or in this organization, and then that's going to bring blessing. And if I don't do exactly kind of as they say or what they want, or if I don't submit well enough, then I'm going to come under a curse, in sickness, disease, tragedy, financial loss is something that can be in play in that kind of way of thinking, in that theology. A pastor, actually, who's a friend of mine, was told to read a book that was really emphasizing these concepts, and he was asked later what he thought about it, and he said to this other pastor who had suggested the book, he said, "I don't think a healthy pastor would ever have to teach this." Meaning that if you're a pastor who's really a servant, you're serving people and you're laying down your life for the flock, you're really walking in love, and you're not controlling people, then people are naturally going to relate their relationship with you as something that's a blessing in their life, and they're going to be glad to be a part of the body and serving. But he said if a pastor is unhealthy, they should never teach this. So a healthy pastor would never have to really emphasize covering and spiritual authority, because the people, just like with a husband and wife dynamic, a wife who has a husband who's laying down his life for her, like Jesus did for the church, is going to gladly be in that mutual submission together with her husband. And likewise within any business or church environment, it's a pleasure to be to walk in humility when there's real agape love that's being displayed. But when that's not there, and there's control and manipulation, and obviously we're getting back into this stuff that it was already deemed a cult by most of the church, the shepherding movement. So go research the shepherding movement, dig into that a little bit, and it'll make a lot of this stuff make a lot of sense.